Welcome back to Trending in Design. This is our mini series, 30 Days of Change. This is day 4. My name is Selena, and I am here today to talk to you about my fourth reason why I think that things need to change. Um, Today's story is about younger me. So, when I was younger, my boyfriend at the time was sick, and I drove him to the pharmacy to pick up some medication. And on our way back, I was pulled over by a police officer. And that police officer, normal routine, asked me for my driver's license and registration. And I then asked him why I was being pulled over. I didn't understand, and at my age at the time, I seeked understanding for everything. He then proceeded to tell me he pulled me over because he didn't like our kind in his neighborhood. My address at the time was in that neighborhood, so I lived there. My father had moved us to a neighborhood that was a little more upscale or considered upscale because the rent was actually affordable at the time. So affordable that another one of my aunts moved into another apartment in the same complex, just a couple of doors down. So my address was in the neighborhood. So that had me confused in the first place because I looked at him and I said, my address is for this neighborhood, so I live here too. And he proceeded to be clear about what he meant. He then told me my kind was niggers and spicks. I come from a place that we are colorblind. And the only other time that I had ever heard those kind of words being spoke directly to somebody, it meant as an insult, was my dad kind of telling me as a kid the things that you don't allow people to call you. A spick, a tomato picker, and a wetback were the top 3 that my dad told me not to allow people to call me. So at that point, I was taken back because I couldn't believe that this person authority had the nerve to say something like that and really truly mean it. So I took down his information the best that I could because they covered it. He covered his badge number, his fellow officer that came in covered the car number because I was adamant about making a complaint because I wanted to stand up for myself. But only to find out doing so, somebody who looked just like me took my complaint on a sticky note and it never went anywhere. And that police officer stayed working for that department for at least 10 years after this incident happened. And I actually experienced additional incidents from this police officer because I lived in a neighborhood that people like us were not considered to be able to afford to live in that type of neighborhood. Again, the rent was affordable, which is why we moved there. That didn't mean that we had the new car or anything high end to go with it. So anytime they saw a little beat up car driving through, that was a sure reason to pull you over because you didn't belong there. That has to stop. That has to change. I don't want my children to grow up feeling that people of authority will treat you that way and that you need to be on defense mode any time that you're pulled over. In the same breath, I have friends that are police officers that are great people that do the opposite. That they've taken their roles in their jobs because they wanted to make a difference. So you got to understand that there's 2 coins of both sides. There's both sides of a coin, should I say. You have people that are nasty and that will treat you this way, but not all people are that way. It's eliminating those that are doing those things that needs to happen. I think we're well on our way there now, considering the last few days. But that really is part of my story, and why things need to change, because that really molded for me how I thought people looked at me that didn't look like me. I later learned that not everybody feels that way. I mean, it's sad, but there are just a selected group of people in all nationalities that have this mentality of superiority. But it wasn't until that day in my life that I really realized that I was a person of color. It wasn't until that day that I realized that somebody might have looked at my relationship in a way that I didn't. Again, I'm colorblind, not in the physical sense, but I look at people for who they are. I don't look at people for the package they come in. And who they are, you tend to find out, is way more beautiful than they may ever look in the outside. So I think that these are things that need to change, and we need to start doing that.